Hello, welcome to Museum Moments with Jewish Museum Milwaukee. My name is Ellie Gettinger, and I'm the Education Director at Jewish Museum Milwaukee. And today, as luck would have it, or chance, I had the privilege and pleasure of giving blood through the American Red Cross. And I think one of the things we think about is, that the Red Cross is always where there's an emergency. And, there have been controversies or things like that, but there have been all of these things that they respond to, and they look for instances of human rights or instances when people need help, and they're there to provide blood and support, whatever that is. And so it goes back, the Red Cross has been around for a really long time. What was happening in the international community during World War II? So let's start by talking about that. I think when we hear about concentration camps and the horrors of the Holocaust, you wonder, well, where was the international community? What were they doing? How did this impact these things? And today we're going to look at one case in which the international community tried to check things out and the way in which the Nazis responded. So today we're not talking about the American Red Cross. We're going to be talking about the Danish Red Cross. And my system was having some interesting movements, so we're going to just leave the PowerPoint like this, but you'll be able to see the bigger slides. So the background here is, as the war is starting, and as Denmark becomes occupied, the Danish people government does a tremendous amount of work to get most of their Jewish citizens to Sweden. They smuggle them in under the floorboards of boats. And the majority of Danish Jewry are saved and protected. They're taken to Sweden, which is a neutral country. About 470-ish Jewish people from Denmark are deported from Denmark to Theresienstadt. And Theresienstadt is the centerpiece of our current special exhibit, To Paint is to Live, the art of Erich Lichtblau-Leskly. So we're going to see a little bit of Leskly in this museum moment as well. And once those Danish Jews are taken to Theresienstadt, the Danish Red Cross and government starts pressuring the Nazis to say, where have you taken our people? What is going on with them? Can we investigate this? One of the interesting things to note about Theresienstadt, and actually Lichtblau-Leskly has a picture of this, is that the Danish Red Cross is sending packages of relief to the Jewish people, to the Danish Jews in Theresienstadt. So they already have a little bit of a leg up health-wise because they are getting some additional nutrition, and it actually is getting through to them, which I think is one of those things we don't consider in thinking about stories of the Holocaust. We tend to really think that, there was no contact with the outside world. In this case, the Danish Red Cross and certain rescue missions within Denmark are working to get their neighbors and such relief packages and food and that little bit of extra nutrition, which probably helped the majority of them survive. So in this moment, October 1943, when this group is taken to Theresienstadt, the Danish Red Cross and government starts pressuring to say, we would like to investigate how these people are being treated, where they're living, what this looks like. And they push and push and push until the Nazis finally agree in early 1944. And a date is set for this visit, and it's set for June, I believe, 23rd, 1944. So there's a little bit of time and a lapse. And in that time, the Nazis work to create this kind of facade of what a spa town would be like. And they've advertised this as, we've moved the Jews from your country. We've moved the kind of elite intellectuals and artists from Germany, from all of these places, into this kind of spa retreat. So they have to then create a spa retreat in what was an old fortress town in Czechoslovakia. Theresienstadt is set in an old fortress. It's tight. There's a lot of overpopulation. It was designed for about 7,000 soldiers. At the height of its population, there are about 50,000 people living in Theresienstadt. So one thing they have to do is move people out, and they do. They move in May of 1944. About 7,000 people are deported to Auschwitz. in order to create this illusion of a peaceful village. And then they start doing all sorts of things. They create a bank system. So this Bank der Judischen, this top artifact is actually a bank book from Theresienstadt. And they also encourage and make it look like there's just random acts of culture, in which there was a lot of culture, but in this case, they have kind of a performance, an on-demand performance, so that as the Danish Red Cross is passing through, they just happen to walk by a performance of the children's opera Brundibar. Our artist at the center of our exhibit, Erich Lichtblau-Leskly, says about this: everything was decorated for the Red Cross visitation. The town square that before only saw military parades had been transformed into a garden with a musical stage, and performances were scheduled. The ghetto was decorated with flowers. Cafes were opened, and soccer games were organized. We'll look more at that soccer games piece in a second, but here's how Leskly shows that image of decorating and creating this facade. This is a piece that was recreated in the 1970s, and it's called "The Sidewalks Must Be Scrubbed." So literally you have people whose job it is to scrub the sidewalks in order to achieve this desired aesthetic effect of creating a ghetto, making the ghetto look like an enticing village. On the back corner there, getting back to that sense of the soccer games, they're advertising. He has a poster for a sports fest, which includes everything from soccer, football, to light athletic competitions and dances and games. So they really are trying to make this charade of like, look at how peaceful and idyllic it is, up to the posters and activities that are going on within the ghetto. And this is a picture of a soccer game that took place, and there were within the ghetto with people watching, again, to give that illusion of this is normal life. This is what every day is. So that as the three emissaries, 2 from the Danish Red Cross, 2 from Denmark, 1 from the International Red Cross, and I believe there might have been a 4th person from Switzerland, come through, that they're going through the entire ghetto in an incredibly scripted motion. No one is allowed to approach them who hasn't been encountering them before, who hasn't been briefed on it. The children are scripted on what they do when they hand things off. And each moment that the Red Cross passes is part of kind of an elaborate charade in order to ensure that they think that the Nazis are only showing what they think the Red Cross wants to see. And it works. The Red Cross reports that the conditions seem okay. The Swiss emissary says this is just the perfect spot for people. The Danish emissaries seem a little bit more guarded in their response, but there is this kind of immediate like, oh yes, this is lovely. And in comparison to the conditions that they've seen both in their own countries with the wars happening, not Switzerland, but Denmark for sure. And then also just seeing what's going on in Poland, that this seems much nicer, but it's all this illusion. Erich continues with this particular depiction where they've created a seating, a lunch seating for older people, just to show, look at how nice this is. The older people are taken care of. And in fact, they moved older people into the lower windows so that people could look at it and be like, oh, look, they can convalesce here. Most of these people were then deported. And here's what he says about this. He says, especially for the commission of the Red Cross, the SS ordered setting up a dining hall for old people. There were also waiters, and you can see this guy in a jacket who's carrying a cup of coffee. Interestingly, one of my students pointed out that no one at the table seems to actually have any food. So again, this illusion, you have the beautiful table setting and flowers, but nothing to eat. All of this was a performance for the outside world. The SS made a film. And it's true, this particular Red Cross visit was so successful that the Nazis thought, wait, maybe we could do more with this kind of idea of propaganda and creating this illusion of Jewish, a Jewish autonomous city that seems to be really nice. So they recruited a Jewish director named Kurt Guerin, and he created a propaganda film that showed how lovely life was in the ghetto. And it was called The Fuhrer Gives a Gift to the Jews. They never ended up doing much with it, but the footage you can find on YouTube. And what I'll point out is that as artists, you know, Lichtblau-Leskly, and Goering was actually deported, was so terrified that he would be captured and killed, that his art would be found, that the piece that you see on the left here, which is in fragments because he cut it up because he was nervous that his art would be discovered like other artists in the camp and he would be deported. So even the creation of art in and of itself was something to be afraid of. I'm going to leave you with this last piece from Erich Lichtblau-Leskly that I think is really descriptive of the kinds of propaganda that they did. This is a dentist office that they created in order to give the illusion of dental hygiene, which was non-existent in the ghetto. And here it says, you know, for good health, it says, stop and close your mouth. So the idea of going to the dentist, instead of saying open wide, that if here you needed to keep your mouth shut in order to be safe. Also, the great irony here is that you can see the toothbrush and toothpaste, things that would have never been available in the ghetto, and yet they're advertising this as though this is where you can just walk in and get your teeth checked and cleaned. This is a remarkable and strange chapter in Holocaust history. And it's been really interesting for us to be able to explore it through Lichtblau-Leskly's work. And thank you so much for joining us. And if you have questions, comments, please throw them in the chat. Hello to Dikla from the Sea of Galilee. We're always excited to have our international visitors watching us as well. Thanks also to Robin Cohen, who supports Museum Moments. And if you want to learn more about Jewish Museum Milwaukee, go to our website, jewishmuseummilwaukee.org. This exhibit, To Paint is to Live, the art of Erich Lichtblau-Leskly, will be on display until May 30th. So there is still time to come check it out. You can book your tickets at jewishmuseummilwaukee.org/visit. Thanks so much and have a wonderful day.